Book 12. The Rampart Breached. After this fashion, in his own hut, Menetius' gallant son tended Eurypylus, the wounded man, while Argives fought the Trojan mass attack their moat no longer could contain, nor could the rampart they had built to save the ships, carrying the moat around it. To the gods they gave no hecatombs that might have won them to guard the wall as shield for the deep-sea craft and plunder that it ringed. The immortal gods had never willed it, and its time was brief. While Hector lived and while Achilles raged, and while Lord Priam's town lived on unsacked, so long the Achaeans' rampart stood. But after the flower of Troy went down, with many Argives fallen or bereft, when Priam's Troy was plundered in the 10th year, and the Argives shipped again for their dear homeland, then Poseidon and Apollo joined to work erosion of the wall by fury of rivers borne in flood against it, all that flow seaward from Ida, Rhesus, Heptaporus, Carissus, Rhodius, Granicus, Aesepus, Scamander's ancient stream, and Simoeus, round which so many shields and crested helms had crashed in dust, with men who were half-gods. These rivers were diverted at their mouths and blent into one river by Apollo, who sent that flood 9 days against the rampart. Zeus let his rain fall without pause, to bring the wall more quickly under inshore water. As for the god who shakes the islands, he in person with his trident in his hands led on the assault. Foundation logs and stones the Achaeans toiled to lay, he shunted seaward, levelling all by the blue running sea. In sand again he hid the long seashore when he had washed the wall down, and he turned the rivers to their old fair watercourses. Thus before long Poseidon and Apollo settled this earthwork. Now, though, on both sides, tumult and combat raged around the wall, whose towering beams rang from battering. The Argives under Zeus's lash were beaten back upon the long ships, all in fear of Hector, master of rout that day. Aye, as before, furious as a high wind when it strikes, he wheeled and fought, boar-like, or like a lion that rounds in mighty joy on dogs and men. The hunters close ranks in a wall and face him to make a broadside volley of javelins, but his high heart will neither quail nor flee. His own courage kills him. Everywhere he turns to test the ranks, and when he charges, all give way. So forward into the melee Hector charged and turned and called his men to cross the moat. But his own chariot team dared not, but on the very brink arrested, whinnied, and reared away in panic, seeing the ditch could not be taken in a leap or passed through easily. On either side banks overhung it, with stakes pointing inward, sharp and long and close together, set by the Achaeans as a ground defence against their dire attackers. No beast-drawing a nimble car could easily descend there, and men on foot thought hard if they could pass. At this, Polydamas at Hector's elbow said, "Hector and the rest of you are captains of auxiliaries. We are fools to drive our teams into the moat, so rough it is to get across. The stakes inside like fangs against us, and then comes the wall. There is no chance at all with chariots to get down in the place and fight. No room. Impaled there I can see us now. If Zeus in thunder will make havoc of Achaeans, if he is hot in the Trojans' cause, by heaven I wish this fight were over soon. The Achaeans wiped out, distant far from Argos, winning no glory. If they once reform, braced on the ships and counter-attack, while we are trapped here in the ditch, then I foresee not even a messenger will reach the town. No one escapes the Achaeans once they rally. Well then, everyone do as I propose. Charioteers, pull up at the moat's edge, while we ourselves in harness and on foot follow Hector in closed ranks. The Achaeans cannot hold if now their ultimate destruction is at hand." Polydamas's counsel to avoid the risk won Hector over, and he vaulted down with weapons from his chariot. Other Trojans stayed no longer huddled behind their teams, but seeing that Hector had dismounted, each commanded his charioteer to keep in line outside the ditch, with a tight rein on his horses, while fighting men moved out ahead. They formed 5 companies under leaders, each in column. Those who deployed with Hector and Polydamas were bravest and most numerous, grimly bent on carrying battle to the long ships when they had breached the wall. Cebriones joined them, third in command, and in his place as driver Hector left a weaker man. Paris headed a 2nd company, whose officers were Alcathous and Agenor. A third was under Helenus and Deiphobus, 2 of Priam's sons, and Asius Hatacides, whose great roan horses brought him from Arisbe and the Celeus River. Over the fourth, Aeneas held command, Anchises' powerful son, whom Lord Antenor's 2 sons joined, Archelicus and Acamas, trained in every fighting skill. Sarpedon held command of the allies. He chose for officers Glaucus and Asteropaeus, far and away the best men, he thought, of the auxiliaries after himself, who stood high in the whole army. Bull's-hide shields being dressed in line, they rushed at the Danaans, certain that these could not resist the charge that swept now on the black ships. And all Trojans, all allies obeyed the battle plan of cool Polydamas. All except Asius Hatacides. He did not care to leave his team and driver, but still mounted, rode to attack the Achaean ships. The idiot. He would not give his own hard fate the slip, or ride in glory from the beachhead back to windy Ilion in his war-car. Miserable death would shroud him, by the spear of Idomeneus, Deucalion's noble son. Asius drove to the left, around the ships, to a place where the Achaeans were withdrawing chariots and horses from the plain. Here he swerved to the wall, and found the gates of planking with great bolts as yet unshut. Men held them open to admit and save stray fugitives from battle. Straight ahead he drove his team, while after him his men ran yelling, for they thought the Achaeans could not hold, but had to fall back on the ships. All a delusion. At the entranceway they met 2 Lapith spearmen, champions, Polypoetes, the son of Perithous, and Leontius, tough as the war god. These, outside the tall gates, held their ground like oaks that tower on high hills, enduring wind and rain through all their days, with roots deep down, tenacious of the earth. Like oaks indeed, these 2 stood fast and trusted their right arms, their fighting power, against great Asius. On came the Trojans towards the wall with shields uplifted, with a long-drawn battle-cry around Lord Asius, Iamenus, Orestes, Adamas Asides, Thoon, and Oenomaus. Until just now the Lapiths, the defenders, had been inside the wall, issuing orders to Achaean troops to form around the ships. But when they saw the Trojans charge, and when a cry came from the Danaans in retreat, they bounded through the gateway to give battle. Think of 2 savage boars in a mountain place, awaiting a loud rabble of dogs and men. They swing their heads from side to side and rip through the underbrush, snapping the twigs off short with a sharp noise of gnashing tusks until some hunter makes the kill. Just so, the bright bronze breastplates clanged as these 2 took their blows. Prodigiously they fought, putting their trust in their own power and in the marksmen on the wall above. In fact, now from high places, in defence of camp and ships and their own lives, the men were pitching stones, and the stones showered to earth, like snow driven by a storm wind, thick and fast, in a murky veil, swept over pasture land. So missiles came in torrents, from Achaean hands as well as Trojan. Helmets rang and bossed shields rang with hits. But Asius Hatacides pummeled his thighs and groaned and bit his lip and said, "O Father Zeus, even you turn out to be a liar. I thought destiny was against the Achaeans, holding before our drive and our spear arms unleashed. Now see, like agile wasted hornets or bees who build their hives on a stony road, hornets that will not leave their homes but wait for hunters and in fury defend their young. Those 2 men only, at the gate will not give way. For them, kill or be killed." But Asius's complaint left Zeus unmoved. It pleased him to award the day to Hector. Now there was fighting at the various gates, a difficult thing for me to tell it all as though I were a god. Around the rampart at every point, blaze upon blaze of war leapt upward. Out of savage need the Argives fought on bitterly to save the ships, and all the gods who took their part were grieved. Still, the 2 Lapiths dealt terrific blows. Polypoetes, Perithous' son, hit Damasus' helm hard on a cheekplate, bronze too frail to take the blow. Straight through into the skull the spearhead crunched its way, demolishing the brain. Down went the man. Then Polypoetes killed Pylon and Ormenus. War-bred Leontius killed Hippomachus with a spear thrust at the loin-guard, drew his sword, and at close quarters, leaping through the press, ran through Antiphates, who went down backward. Next at Menon and Iamenus he lunged, and at Orestes, taking their lives away. Now while the Lapiths made these kills, and took the dead men's flashing armour, those who followed Polydamas and Hector, their young troops in number and valour greatest, sworn to breach the Achaean wall and set the ships afire, halted hesitant at the moat. Just then, as they desired to cross, a bird flew by them, heading to the left across the army, an eagle beating upward. In its claws a huge snake, red as blood, live and jerking, full of fight. It doubled on itself and struck the captor's chest and throat. At this, the eagle in its agony let go, and veered away, screaming downwind. The snake fell in the mass of troops, and Trojans shuddered to see the rippling thing lie in their midst, a portent from Lord Zeus who bears the storm cloud. Polydamas, at Hector's elbow, said, "Hector, you always manage to rebuke me when I talk well to assemblies. It won't do at all to cross you, peace or war in council, only to confirm you. Well, once more, I intend to speak as I think best. Let us not carry the fighting to the ships. The end, I think, is what the bird portended, if a true portent, when we wished to cross, the eagle bearing left across the army, beating upward, grappling this great snake alive. She dropped it here. She never gained her own nest with it, never had her will to give it to her nestlings. Ah, we too are grappling danger. Granted we break the gates and force a breach in the Achaean wall. Granted they fall back. We shall never make it intact to the ships by these same paths. But many a Trojan must we leave behind, lacerated with bronze by the defenders. That is what you'd hear from a diviner, learned in signs, and heeded by the troops." Hector in the bright helm frowned and said, "This time I have no liking for your counsel. You must have other and braver things to say. If this comes from the heart, why then the gods themselves have wrecked your wits. You try to tell me I should forget what Zeus of the long thunder planned and promised with his nod to me. You would have me put my faith in birds, whose spreading wings I neither track nor care for, whether to the right-hand sunward they fly, or to the left-hand westward into darkness. No, I say rely on the will of Zeus, who rules all mortals and immortals. One and only one portent is best. Defend our fatherland. And why should you turn pale at war and combat? Even if the rest of us are killed to a man beside the Argive ships, no fear that you will be. You lack ability for warfare, and you lack the nerve to face it. I tell you, though, that if you hold off now or make one soldier falter in this battle, you are a dead man on the spot, with my own spear-blade in you." So he finished, turning to go forward as the others followed him with a blood-curdling cry. And from the slopes of Ida, Zeus, who plays in thunder, roused a gale against the ships, blowing a dust cloud to bewilder spent Achaeans, while to Trojans and to Hector he made his gift of glory. Trustful now of Zeus's omens and their own right arms, they made trial of the wall to break it down. Layers of earth and stone they undermined, and the revetments of the fighting wall they tore away by prying loose the posts the Achaeans drove to hold the earthwork in. They pulled these up, thinking when they were gone to breach the wall. But even now the Danaans would not yield free passage. Jamming oxide bags of earth into the gaping dike, they cast stones from above on the attackers. Everywhere along the parapet, one Ajax and the other, acting marshals, roamed and cheered the Achaeans on, at times with pleading and at other times with iron words of rebuke, if they caught sight of anyone hanging back from the fight. "Friends," one would say, "whether you are among the best or fair or a poor fighter, all men cannot be equal in war. This challenge is for everyone. You see it for yourselves. Now not one man may let himself be turned back on the ships by any baying enemy he hears. Keep your shots going forward. Cheer each other. So Zeus, who is Olympian lord of lightning, may let us throw them back upon the town." With words like these and urgent battle cries, both men cheered the Achaeans on. Imagine flakes of snow that come down thick and fast on a winter day, when Zeus, who views the wide world, brings on a fall of snow, showing mankind his means of making war. He lulls the winds and sifts white flakes in stillness hour by hour, until hilltop and foreland are all hid, as are the farmers' meadowlands and fields, while snow comes down over hoary sea, on harbours and on shores. Though running surf repel it, all things else are muffled white, weighed down by snow from heaven, a storm from Zeus. So thick and fast the stones flew. Here they fell on Trojans, there from Trojans on Achaeans, by all hands thrown and thudding along the wall. But even so, and even now, the Trojans, led by Hector, could not yet have breached the wall and gate with massive bar, had not Lord Zeus impelled Sarpedon, his own son, against the Argives like a lion on cattle. Circular was the shield he held before him, hammered out of pure bronze. Aye, the smith had hammered it, and riveted the plates to thick bull hides on golden rods rigged out to the full circumference. Now gripping this, hefting a pair of spears, he joined the battle, formidable as some hill-bred lion. ravenous for meat after long abstinence. His valour summons him to attempt homesteads and flocks, and though he find herdsmen on hand with dogs and spears to guard the sheep, he will not turn without a fling at the stockade. One thing or the other, a mighty leap and a fresh kill, or he will fall at the spearman's feet, brought down by a javelin thrown hard. So valour drove Sarpedon to the wall to make a breakthrough. Turning to Glaucus, Hippolochus' son, he said, "What is the point of being honoured so, with precedence at table, choice of meat, and brimming cups at home in Lycia, like gods at ease in everyone's regard? And why have lands been granted you and me on Xanthus' bank, to each his own demesne with vines and fields of grain, so that we too, at times like this, in the Lycian front line, may face the blaze of battle and fight well, that Lycian men-at-arms may say, 'They are no common men, our lords who rule in Lycia. They eat fat lamb at feasts and drink rare vintages, but the main thing is their fighting power when they lead in combat.' Ah, cousin, could we but survive this war to live forever deathless, without age, I would not ever go again to battle, nor would I send you there for honour's sake. But now 1,000 shapes of death surround us, and no man can escape them or be safe. Let us attack, whether to give some fellow glory or to win it from him." Glaucus listened, and moved only to obey, and leading the great Lycian tribe, the two men charged. Now Menestheus shivered, seeing them come with menace for him against the wall. He glanced around him at the battlements of Achaeans, looking for some chief who might repel destruction from his men. Ajax the tall and Ajax the short he saw, avid for war, both standing there, and Teucrus from his hut this moment come to join them. All were near, and yet he could not reach them with a shout, so loud the clangour that went up to heaven, clash of shields and helms that rang with blows and blows upon the gates. Now all was shut, besieged by Trojans trying to break them down. In haste he sent Thoötes off to Ajax, telling him, "Run to Ajax, call him here, or call both, rather. That is best by far, since sure destruction is upon me here. The Lycian captains bring such weight to bear in battle as in the past, they are formidable. If our two on the wall there are hard-pressed, get Ajax Telamonius alone, and with him Teucrus, who knows bowmanship." When he had heard him out, the messenger darted along the wall, manned by Achaeans, to halt by those named Ajax. He said at once, "Ajax and Ajax, marshals of the Argives, the son of Petius, reared under heaven, begs your presence for a time at least to share the danger, both of you, if possible. That would be best by far, as sure destruction comes upon him there. But you can see the Lycian captains bring such weight to bear in battle as in the past, they are formidable. But if the fight is hot here too, then Ajax Telamonius alone can go, and the good bowman Teucrus with him." Tall Ajax, son of Telamon, complied, first saying swiftly to the son of Oileus, "Ajax, you and Lycomedes hold your ground here, and keep shouting at Darnæans to put their hearts into the fight. Meanwhile, I will go lend a hand there in battle. But I should soon be back, when I have given our men support." So off he went, and Teucrus, too, his brother, went along. Passing inside the wall, they found Menestheus' tower, and those who manned it hard beset, as now the Lycian chiefs like a thundersquall loomed at the rampart. These two hurled themselves into the fight against the attacking line, and a great shout went up. Telamonian Ajax made the first kill, Sarpedon's brave companion Epicles, by heaving a jagged block, the topmost of a pile that lay inside, against one of the battlements. Not easily could any mortal now alive hold it in both his hands, even in his prime. But Ajax raised it high and hurled it down, shattering helmet, skull, and brains at one blow. Down the Lycian dropped, headlong from the wall's height like a diver, as warm life ebbed from his bones. Then Teucrus shot Glaucus, powerful son of Hippolochus, with an arrow as he rushed the wall, a bow shot just where he saw his arm bared. Joy in battle left the young fighter. Off the wall he leapt, not to be seen and taunted by Achaeans. Glaucus's withdrawal made Sarpedon grieve the instant he perceived it. Still the battle gave him joy. He pierced Alcmaeon, son of Thestor, and drew the spear blade out, as doubling forward after the spear the man fell hard, his brazen gear clanging. Then Sarpedon, grasping a battlement with massive hands, wrenched, and the parapet came toppling down, so men could mount by it to the stripped wall. Ajax and Teucrus met him now together. Teucrus put a shaft in the bright belt on which his shield hung, but Zeus brushed away death's shadow from his child. His fate was not to die abaft the ships. Though Ajax lunged and hit the shield, his point would not pass through. It only stopped Sarpedon. He fell back a little from the crumbled battlement, not in retreat though, but still craving honour, and whirled and called his godlike countrymen, "Lycians, why are you lagging, slackening off your driving power? It is hard for me alone, strong as I am, to make a breakthrough, clear a way to the ships. Come up alongside. More hands here will do a better job." Inwardly shrinking from their lord's rebuke, they bunched around him and attacked in force. The Argives, for their part, inside the wall, reinforced their companies. Both found it heavy work, for neither could the Lycians breach the wall and clear a way to the ships, nor could Danaan spears dislodge the Lycians from the wall once they had reached it. Think of two men contending over boundary stones, each with his measuring rod in the common field, in a narrow place, disputing what is fair. So here the parapet divided these, and for the parapet they tore each other's chest-protecting oxide-apron shields. Many were gashed by the cold-hearted bronze, every man who left his back uncovered turning, and some men through the shield itself, and everywhere towers and battlements were blood-bespattered from both sides. But still the attacking Trojans could not rout the Achaeans. They held. Think of an honest cottage spinner balancing weight in one pan of the scales and wool yarn on the other, trying to earn a pittance for her children. Evenly poised as that were these great powers making war. Until at last Lord Zeus conferred on Hector, Priam's son, the glory of bursting through the Achaean wall. In a piercing voice he called, "On! On, Trojans, horsebreakers, breach the Argive wall and pitch a hell of fire into the ships!" The listening troops obeyed and surged in a great throng against the wall to clamber between towers carrying spears. Now Hector picked a boulder that had stood broad-bottomed, sharp on top before the gate. The strongest pair of men in the whole realm, as men are now, could not with ease heave up this boulder from the ground into a wagon. Lightly Hector handled it alone, for Zeus, the son of crooked-minded Kronos, made it a trifling weight for him. A shepherd will carry easily in either hand a new-shorn ram's fleece, no great weight for him. So Hector, lifting up the stone, went forward to the high double doors of heavy timber closing the gateway. 2 crossbars inside were rammed in place, and 1 pin fastened them. He took a stance before the doors and braced, with feet apart, for full force in the blow, then smashed down at the center. Hinges cracked on both sides as the great mass tumbled through. The doors groaned inward, bars gave way, the planks were splintered by the impact right and left, and through the breach, in glory, Hector leapt, his visage dark as nightfall, though he shone terribly from the bronze that he was dressed in, carrying a brace of spears. No one could stop him, none but the gods, as he leapt through the gate, his eyes burning. Then he wheeled and called the mass of Trojans to come charging on across the wall, and they obeyed him, some by swarming over, others pouring through the very gateway. And the Danaans broke for their long ships in an uproar always rising.